Good evening and welcome to this edition of Conversations with Lothrop. We're very pleased that you could be with us this evening. Our guest is Choral Longsworth, a longtime Oberlin resident and director not only of the First Church Choir but of Choral Spectrum, which this year is celebrating its 35th anniversary of bringing music to Oberlin. Choral, we're so pleased you're here.
Thank you, Dick. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. Let me ask you a few things about yourself first. You grew up in North Carolina?
I did.
You did, and went to Duke, is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. And you have a master's from the New England Conservatory?
Right. I also went to Harvard Divinity School for a while.
Did you get a degree there? Or?
No, but I began a degree.
So you understand the First Church Choir a little better, what goes on there, because how long were you there in the seminary?
A year.
A year. Mm-hmm. Well, that would give you a little grounding there.
Absolutely.
Yes. And you moved to Oberlin, I believe, in 1964.
We did.
When her husband, Robert, became a professor in the English department of Oberlin College. For 10 years, he was dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, and I have a question for you. Is being the spouse of a dean a challenge?
Yes. I think that's enough said.
Enough said. Okay. Would you have any advice for such spouses to be in the future?
No.
No. All right. So would it be safe to say you enjoyed it, but you're glad that you don't do it anymore? Would that be safe?
Well, I didn't see it as a profession.
I see. Yeah.
I saw it as a pleasure, but not a profession.
Mm-hmm. Good. I bet it takes some diplomacy at times, doesn't it?
Perhaps.
Perhaps. Very good. And she has been a long-time choir director of First Church, I believe 24 years now, or is it 25?
This is the 25th.
25th year of that. So this lady has an impressive history in music at Oberlin. Choral Spectrum, 35 years.
Yes.
Tell us about founding and why it was founded.
A group of singers from the Oberlin area wanted to get together just because they loved singing, and we were good friends. And then very shortly after, Eldo Neufeld, who was a librarian at the Oberlin Conservatory, decided to make the group a formal official group. People were asking us to sing. Some of the first members were Shar and Hal Peterson of Oberlin, who at one time sang with the Trapp Family Singers, and Shar Peterson sang with Robert Shaw. She did a good number of solos with him. Marion Drummond was another one of the first singers, and she continued with Oberlin Community Chamber Singers, now called Choral Spectrum, for 30 years. So we have a long history.
Now, am I right that you were one of the original singers?
That's right.
Are you the only one left of the original?
Yes, I am.
Oh, that's great. What was the basic purpose of it when it was formed?
You know, when we started, we really just were friends who got together to sing. But since it lasted and lasted and lasted, and more people wanted to join and wanted to hear us sing, we decided to become incorporated. So in 1978, we became incorporated. And at that point, we did examine our vision, our goal, our purpose. And one thing we added deliberately was outreach. And since 1978, we've done a lot more outreach. One of our first goals along that line was to give a program of music by women composers. Now, in 1981, music by women composers was not very well known. In fact, a grant that we received from the Ohio Arts Council was under the category of experimental grant.
Oh, really?
Because many people thought women couldn't compose music and hadn't composed music. Well, Carol Lebedkin, who was a pianist in town at the time, and I were both interested in researching the issue, and we found some wonderful treasures of music that's composed by women. This is a program cover for the program that we
Celebration
did.
of Music by Women Composers, and that was what year?
1981, I
81.
believe.
Now, Alice Parker was wasn't she one of the lady composers that you
Not in this concert,
in this
but
concert.
later.
And later you did.
We commissioned a work by Alice Parker for our 20th anniversary.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what you're thinking of. And we're going to sing that cantata again. It's a beautiful, beautiful work called Charity and Love. We will sing it on December the 8th at our concert at First Church. It's for harp as well as strings. Soloist Malia Bendi Merad, who is a Muslim background, is going to sing the solo. Beautiful, beautiful singer who just won the Ohio division of the Metropolitan Opera competition.
Is this a student at the conservatory?
It is a student at the conservatory, yes.
You said competition, I began to make that connection. Yeah, that's great. It was originally called the Oberlin Community Chamber Singers, and why did you change to Choral Spectrum? I'll bet there's a story behind that.
We would like for the name to reflect what the organization is. But if you try to reflect everything, the name gets so long and cumbersome. Many people had advised us it should be shorter, that it would be easy to remember, it would be easier to market, just practical reasons. So we considered a number of possibilities, and when we moved into the new Union Center for the Arts with other arts organizations from the county, we decided that was a good time to make the change. New address, new name, new future.
That sounds, and Spectrum certainly covers the range.
And that also reflects the variety of the music we enjoy.
Tell us how it came about that you are the director.
By default, I think. The first director and founder was Eldo Neufeld. And after about a year and a half, he decided that he did not want to direct anymore, and I was recruited by those people who remained in the group, and except for sabbatical years, have been with it ever since. We've had some wonderful directors, though, in those sabbatical years. Herbert Henke has been director. Robert Bostwick from Lorraine has been director. And we've had a good many guest conductors work with the singers, and that has provided an enrichment for them over the 35 years.
How many singers are there? And is there a, let me ask three questions sort of together. How many singers do you have? Do you try to keep it within a certain number, and how do you select them?
We select them by audition, and we try to have at least 20 and up to 25 or so. We'd like for the parts to be balanced. We'd like to have really good singers. And some years that's easier than others because there are so many options and so many activities and demands on people's time this day and age. But we have a very good group this year, and we're looking forward to our next concert.
And they don't just come from Oberlin. You have
No, they don't.
What percentage would not be Oberlin, roughly?
Well, it depends on the year, but I would say 2/3 to 3/4 are not Oberlin.
Oh.
So they come from Parma, from Elyria, from Wellington, from London, Ohio, from Vermilion, Lorraine, Amherst.
And you have a core. There's some change every year, but you have a basic core that
Right.
has been with you for some time.
That's correct.
Yeah, which helps, certainly.
Oh,
doesn't it?
absolutely.
Yes.
Wonderful course.
And you just answered the next question I was going to ask you about that. Do you attract college students at all, or high school students?
Sometimes we have a scholarship for voice lessons for college students who sing with us. And but college student schedules are such that very often, if they sing with us, it's quite a temporary thing, one semester or a year. But we always enjoy the college's participation. More often they play instruments or do solo work. We've even had student conductors to work with the regular conductor, that sort of collaboration.
I came across a quotation, I guess, that you made about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. It's nothing like throwing these things up at you, isn't it, years
Yes.
later? We try to show students that music isn't just a course to be studied in school, but a dynamic art form that can be enjoyed through a person's lifetime. Do you think some of that gets instilled to students who may not have it already?
I hope it gets instilled to everyone who hears us. We have done collaborations also with the Elyria a cappella choir, for instance, with the Oberlin choristers, and these are young people who enjoy singing at the age they are. We hope that they will always enjoy singing, and that when they become adults, they'll sing with Choral Spectrum or some other group that's in their own home area, because singing can be enjoyed for all one's life.
Catherine Plank has been a guest here, and
She has a splendid program.
She has this wonderful program with the little tiny ones now, I believe, up to not so little anymore.
Yes, she does.
You seem to rotate locations where in town where your concerts are held. There'll be one church, one. Is there a reason for that particularly, or is it?
There might be several reasons. There might be reaching different constituencies in the community. It might be the acoustics of the building that might fit the kind of music we're doing. For instance, we've sung in Fairchild Chapel. You would not sing necessarily there the kinds of music that you would sing at another venue, maybe First Church, where the hall is so large. You might have a different kind of music, whereas at Fairchild the acoustics are very live, it's very echoey, and it's suited to certain kinds of music better than any other place in town. But then First Church is suited for other kinds, and the Christ Church we've sung at Rust Methodist Church.
I think you've been at First Methodist too, haven't you?
And at First Methodist, yes, we have.
One doesn't think of each of these, the layperson, I think, as I am, doesn't think about that kind of thing, that each one of these would possibly fit differently with the music that you're
They have
doing.
a certain character, just the ambiance of the place.
And would it be true to say they ring true better somehow, or something like that?
That's a nice way to put it.
And you have 2 concerts a year, I believe. Is that pretty
Well,
standard?
we prepare 2 complete programs.
Okay, that's
Sometimes we perform them more than once.
Okay. How do you select the music you perform?
Well, selecting music is a lot of fun, I think. I enjoy reading music the way some people enjoy reading books. I like to look through it. I like to see common themes in the music, subject matter, history of the music, composers of the music, so that sometimes our programs are built around themes. There was the one I mentioned about women composers. More recently, we did a program of music by Hispanic composers, and we had a lot of contacts from the Lorraine Hispanic community. A busload came to the concert and gave us a standing ovation. That was reaching out to the community and also enjoying the riches of their culture. It was very exciting to learn that music. The theme of our present preparation for December 8th is highlights of 35 years. But we've also done a Madrigal May celebration in costume. We've done a concert of Irish music, so that was the theme. We've done a concert called Lovescapes and Landscapes, and that was a spring program that was built around the theme of music about love and the beauties of nature, pastoral scenes. So very often a theme takes over. Sometimes, though, I just come across a piece of music that I'd like to sing and then build the rest of the program around it. It might be Charity and Love by Alice Parker. That kind of thing. We've done Bach motets and
you're doing something by Bach at this next one, aren't you?
oh yes, let me tell you about that. The chamber choir of the youth chorale of Oberlin choristers is directed by Dr. Jody Kirshner. And Jody's singers will join the Finney Choir from First Church and Choral Spectrum singers to sing 2 choruses from the Bach B minor Mass. They're Gloria choruses. The text is, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill among men." So that's very appropriate for the Christmas season. We sing it in Latin, of course, but that number 1 is a highlight from our past 35 years, because at one point we sang about an hour and 15 minutes of music from the Bach B minor Mass at First Church and at Trinity Cathedral in Cleveland. And so we're selecting those 2 choruses. We're very excited that the Youth Chorale Chamber Singers and the Finney Choir will join us. We'll also have an instrumental ensemble with that, and it will be performed at First Church on December 8th, at Finney Chapel December 15th with the choristers concert, and December 16th at First Church for the carol service.
So now this all brings up something else that I hadn't thought of. How far in advance do you plan your concerts? Are you, as you're now working through this 35th season, are you already thinking about the 36th? Are you lining up ideas?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, for spring, for instance, we will have a guest come to conduct one of his works. His name is Bob Chilcott, and he is from London, England. And he used to sing for years with the King Singers. And I'm sure everyone's heard of the King Singers. They've produced many, many CDs and performed all over the world. Well, Bob Chilcott has written a set of pieces called Songs and Cries of London. And we're using that as the focus of a program of music by English composers. And Mr. Chilcott himself has agreed to come and to rehearse the singers and to direct his piece in the concert. There are 2 little pieces in this set that are written for children's voices, and some of the touring choir from the choristers will be a part of that.
Wonderful.
Another collaboration.
Oh, that is great. Finances. How do you finance all of this? It must take some money.
It does, and we're very fortunate to have the services of Laura Paxton, who is our promotional director, and we have a board of friends that help us, and we have an executive council who also help us. So we have fundraising projects, individual donors. We have a loyal support system of people who donate every year, and foundations in the area are very generous also. The Stocker Foundation, the Nord Family Foundation, the Community Foundation of Lorain County, and the Nordson Corporation Foundation have all been extremely supportive.
So you don't have to worry as much. You have some staff help on that.
We have some wonderful staff.
That's great. You are now headquartered at the New Union Center. As you said, how is that working out?
Beautifully.
Is it?
We are so grateful to the Nord family for renovating that building so that aesthetically, from the outside, it's still the historic Westervelt Hall. Inside, it's very, very useful as office space. For some organizations, it provides rehearsal space. And of course, the largest organization is the Firelands Association for the Visual Arts. And they have gallery space, classroom space, office space, and a lovely little store.
Does the art museum still, Ellen Armour, still have a presence over there? I think they did.
Not presently.
Not at the present. Okay, I remembered that. I
yes, they
didn't know
did.
that was still there. Let's talk a little bit about rehearsals. Is there space enough in the Union Center for what you need and what everybody else needs? Do you also have, let me put another part of that question. Do you have people wanting the same rehearsal at the same time?
Yes, we do, which is why we don't rehearse there.
You answered that one, okay.
But fortunately, the Oberlin Conservatory offers space for us to rehearse, and we appreciate that very, very much. And that's where we've always rehearsed.
So you sort of have to keep things in two places, don't you? Or do you cart everything over to the conservatory?
Well, once the singers get their music, they take care of it.
Oh, that's right, of course, yes. And how often do you rehearse?
Once a week.
Once a week.
September through May.
Then you take a little time off. And I asked you about the staff support, and you've already mentioned that.
Yes.
And how far away from home do you travel?
We have had quartet go as far as Ann Arbor. We've never really been on an extended tour, but we've sung in Cleveland. We've sung in the Beck Center in Lakewood, at Stocker Center of LC3, the Palace Theater in Lorraine. We've sung in Wellington and Vermilion and churches and schools all over the area.
You mentioned Trinity Cathedral. I can imagine the acoustics in Trinity Cathedral are somewhat different than they would be at First Church.
Exactly.
And you know how to, you have the skills to tell the singers how to project, and
we try.
You try, yes. Because I know that's a challenge to organists.
Yes,
and I assume it would be with voice as well. 35 years, what celebrations have you in mind, or are you going to have already set up?
Well, the 35th celebration is December 8th, 7:15 at First Church. And tickets will be available for $9 before the concert, or $10 at the door, with child care provided. And we take care of that because we always record our concerts, and very often they are too long or complicated for little children to enjoy. So we provide child care so that their parents can enjoy them without worry.
That's good.
Tickets will be available at the Carlisle shop in Oberlin, at Uncommon Objects in the New Union Center for the Arts in Oberlin, with Brummers in Vermilion, and Brandow Jewelers in Elyria.
Getting pretty high class there.
We hope it's worth it.
I'm sure it is. I was thinking of the jewelry store. That's a fine jewelry store, yes. You brought some things here. Would you like to call attention as we start winding this down?
I can do that. One of my favorite concerts in the past was called Candles and Kings, and it was a concert in which a rabbi and a priest participated, and in which the candles of the Hanukkah, which is the Hanukkah candelabra, and the Advent wreath were lit, and something about the traditions of both the Jewish and the Christian celebrations of the season were given. And then we sang music by Jewish composers, often folk songs related to Hanukkah, and music by Christian composers about Advent and Christmas. So the king refers to Christ the King. The candles was the candelabra and the Advent wreath. And we ended the concert with a song that we sang first in Hebrew and then in English about this being one world and that there is one God. It was quite a moving concert, we felt, and that was at the Methodist Church. This In Sweet Jubilation was a concert that we did maybe 10 years ago, and it was so popular we were asked to repeat it the next year. And it was a pageant of the Nativity story in which we wore costumes and processed in Fairchild Chapel as if we were mummers in a medieval pageant many years ago. And the symbols of the Nativity were presented as we sang songs relating to the shepherds, the wise men, the Christ child, and so forth.
Someone, this looked sort of fascinating.
This was a collaboration with choristers as well. All God's Creatures Got a Song, and the largest piece in this was a cantata by Andrew Carter, who's a British composer, and it talked about the animals, all ye works of the Lord, the green wiggly things, the sun and the moon, the badgers and the hedgehogs, and we enjoyed collaborating with choristers.
And this one then is the 25th, isn't
That's
it?
25th,
That's
yes.
10 years ago.
This was 10 years ago, and this was probably the largest project we've ever done. In 1991, Choral Spectrum, then called Oberlin Community Chamber Singers, had a grant from the Nord Family Foundation to bring in the choir of Brazil Denard, who is an outstanding African-American composer and choral director from Detroit. And he brought his choir down. They did some demonstration for us. The Oberlin Conservatory was involved. The high schools from all over the area sent singers to work with Brazil Denard, and he instructed them in many important facets of African-American music. That was an all-day Finney Chapel event. Then that night, which was a Friday night, his choir sang in the Palace Theater, and many, many people came to hear the Brazil Denard choir. Then the next morning, Brazil Denard worked with the singers of Choral Spectrum and taught us the many wise things that he'd passed on to the high school students the day before. It was an experience we'll never forget.
Seeing all of these makes me wonder, as a former librarian, do you have an archivist who takes care of all this for you? You have all of these programs from the first year and everything?
We have scrapbooks.
Yeah, very good.
Yes.
Very good. That you keep in a safe place, I hope.
Yes, we do.
Well, this is wonderful. And we certainly congratulate you and congratulate you on the 35 years. That is, and it doesn't seem like that, does it? It doesn't seem that long, does it?
No, it certainly doesn't. But I feel blessed to have worked with so many wonderful singers over the years, and to have had the support that we have had
Well,
all
you get
this
great
time.
support from the college, don't you? Indirectly or
We
sometimes
do.
directly.
And you know, it's very unusual for an independent group, a group independent of church or college or any other institution, certainly of the size of ours, that is 20 to 25 singers. It's very unusual for that kind of group to last very long.
Mm-hmm.
35 years is as long as I am aware. I have asked on email, professional internet lists, does anybody know any small chamber choir who has lasted more than 20 years? And my replies, in those replies, the longest that I've heard is 27.
Mm-hmm.
So this is quite unusual.
It certainly is. And I hope you're going to get some good publicity in the area. Are you in area newspapers for this
We hope so.
Yes, with pictures and so forth. That sounds great.
Thank you for your help.
Well, thank you. And before we're just about to wind this down, it's gone fast, hasn't it?
Yes,
It's
it has.
amazing. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with us?
I'd like to thank you for having me come.
Well, it's a great pleasure.
We appreciate what you do with Conversations with Lothrop,
Thank you.
and I appreciate you sparing me the telephone calls. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Carol, we will give you a mug when we get one. They're being ordered and should be in soon. Now, all our guests get a mug that says Conversations with Lothrop, and we'll give you a tape of the show.
Thank you.
And we thank you so very, very much for being here this evening. Thank you for being with us. We're going to take December off, as is our custom. We'll be back at the end of January with another interesting guest. Until then, this is Richard Lothrop saying thank you so much for being with us this evening, and we will see you in January. Thanks again.